Make some noise, show some love to the great Eric Nicksick, everyone. Yes. Eric, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Also, some of the best hair in the business, too. Look at this thing. Holy smokes. It's flowing. Frank, his mic.
Good?
Can you guys hear him?
Yo, yo.
There it is.
Let's go.
Yo, thank you so much. This is great, right?
Bro, I'm so pumped for you right now.
Thank you.
Amazing. And the crew you got together?
We got the whole crew. The whole. You know what it's like.
Right now.
You know what it's like to be a part of a team, right?
I very much.
It's not the same if you're solo.
Right.
You have to have your boys. You have to have your army.
100%.
It's kind of like a fight team.
100%. This is the fight team, but you got the ones. You got the Avenger crew now.
Thank you. Thank you.
It.
How are you?
Good. Busy.
How many fighters you have tomorrow?
12. No. Just,
oh, Jesus.
I have Zell Huber up in the corner. Lazy Boy trains with us, and then Raul Rosas trains with us as well.
Okay.
But Lazy Boy and Zell Huber are back to back, so it's easier for me just to be back there with Zell Huber, wrap his hands, warm him up, and then.
Is that tough? Is it tough to make that call? And do the fighters get upset? Oh, why are you with him, not with me?
Not at all, because Lazy Boy, his first language is Spanish. And I think for this transition, having Capetillo, having Shorty, having Mike, his guys that he's comfortable with, it makes more sense that way. So all these guys are our responsibility as a team. But when it comes to the corner, you're going to go in there and fight anyway, right? So, but my responsibility is really for Daniel. I've been with him for 5 fights now. He's my guy, so it's just easier for me to have that.
And will you be in Raul's corner as well?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
I'm really curious about this, and maybe you have some insight. The big question for me, it's at the Sphere, right? There's all this hoopla. Do you have any idea what the screen is going to look like during the fight?
Not a clue. And that was the thing.
It's a concern, right? To a degree?
Yeah. I mean, is it going to be on? Like,
right.
How's that going to work?
Isn't that distracting, potentially?
Absolutely would be. I mean, thinking the way that we'd be staged, but from what everybody said is like the way that we're sitting where the octagon will be, the screen is more up here. But it would still be out of your peripheral if you're sitting in the cage and you're fighting. So I'm curious too, man. I'm sure they figured it out and they got something for it. But yeah,
you haven't been on the inside.
Nothing.
They're keeping it locked up.
Yep.
Have you ever actually been in the Sphere?
Never.
Really?
Never.
Wow. You never saw Grateful Dead, U2, all that stuff. Your first time is cornering a fighter at that iconic venue.
Fight, yeah.
Man, does it even matter to you? Like, do you get excited about those things, or to you, like, you're just so locked in on the task at hand?
Pretty locked in. Haven't thought too much about it. I think when you talk about like those cards and you're like UFC 100, 200, the ones that are kind of like, the one to me that really stood out the most was the pandemic fight in Jacksonville, the first sporting event during the pandemic, right? And you're like, oh shit, like there's nothing else to do. Everybody's gonna be watching this fight. That did have a different feel to it. And then it was quiet. There's nobody there. Francis knocks out Jairzinho. It sounds like a gunshot goes off. Right? There's no cheering. It was just an eerie feeling, So those ones kind of stand out to me the most.
Speaking of the great Francis Ngannou, it was just announced not that long ago that he is coming back.
Yep.
October 19th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. There was some talk maybe he'll take the rest of the year off.
Yeah.
Obviously, a very tough year, unspeakable tragedy that he has experienced, and no one would blame him, right? If he took 3 years off, no one would blame him. Where is he at right now? What could you tell us? I believe he's back home in France at the moment.
So he's in Paris right now. He's doing camp. I head out there Tuesday. Dewey's there now. Tripp is there now. And then I'll be there for about 12 days, and we're going to get into more camp. I'll come home, help Ige and a couple guys get ready, and then I'll head back out to Saudi Arabia with him. But he's doing great, and I think you nailed it on the head. There's no parent should ever have to go through that type of tragedy. And for me, it was about getting him home and keeping him occupied. It had nothing to do with wanting him to fight again. It just had to do with like being around my brother. And the best thing that I think for him was, the best therapy was being around the boys, being in the gym, and training to keep his mind off of things. Now, if that training in that process, if it lit a fire underneath him and gave him motivation to fight again, then great, so be it. But like you said, none of us were ever going to, I told my wife when that happened, he might never fight ever again.
Right.
We don't know. I didn't know what his situation was. And then we went to dinner. It was myself and Dewey and Francis. And, we had this long conversation. We were there for about 3 hours, and there was tears and there was everything, bro. Like, it was tough. And then at one point, Francis looked over at me and he said, hey, this next one we do it for Kobe. And I was like, oh, shit. All right, like it's on now. So as a coach, it's nice to understand your fighter's motivations. And those motivations change every camp. Things change. Things happen in your life. And now I know what I have to lean on. I know what he's preparing for. We have a very tough opponent ahead of us. But, you know, when shit gets rough during camp and you're tired and everything else, I know what I can draw out of him.
And for those that may not know, Kobe, of course, is his son. And this isn't an easy fight.
Right.
Renan Ferreira may not be a household name, but he's a freaking giant, right?
He's a
giant who can hit really hard.
Yeah, he's a big man. Yeah, good all around, and very underrated. I think maybe because of, you know, he's not on a well-known promotion, but you know, when he saw his fight against Ryan Bader, I think that kind of put him in the masses, and a lot of people understood who he was.
Can you clear something up for us? And it's really something maybe for Francis, but I know you're so close to him. A lot of people, including myself, thought that some of Renan's comments at the press conference were out of line and in very poor taste. Did you talk to him about it, and did that piss him off? Did it make it more personal?
It came up a little bit in conversation because we were in D.C. together. But I think there was an understanding that there was a language barrier, and he might not have understood what was being said and how to properly present it or translate it. So I don't think Francis took it to heart that way, knowing a guy that English is not his first language in Francis Ngannou. So I don't think he took it personal. I think that if you have to use something like that as bulletin board material, you're in the wrong sport.
Okay.
This dude's going to try to take your head off, and we're trying to knock his fucking head off, you know?
I love it.
Yeah.
I freaking love it. Francis Ngannou, by the way, against Renan Ferreira, October 19th, PFL pay-per-view on DAZN, ESPN Plus in Riyadh. You got so many big-time fighters, and I believe one of your middleweights is fighting for the belt next. It hasn't been officially announced, but it seems like all roads lead to DDP versus Sean Strickland too, right?
Here we go.
Yes, we're back. It could almost be a year later. Do you have any sort of time frame yet, or not quite yet?
The last I heard from Sean is we're just waiting on DDP's health and when he agrees to fight. So I'm assuming it probably won't be until next year sometime. That's my guess. I mean, we're running pretty close on time now, so maybe January, February of next year.
Were you surprised that DDP beat Izzy?
No.
Not at all?
Not at all.
Why?
I was 50-50 on that, you know? I was 50-50 on that. But I've gotten to know Dricus pretty well over the last year or so. I like the guy. I think he's a good dude. But we had some interesting conversations, even leading up to the fight with Sean, when I was breaking down tape and just kind of watching his evolution, if you will. And I think he really started to understand what he's trying to accomplish in there as a striker. It seems erratic, it seems a little off, but that's what makes him so good. What we were talking about, where I thought he might give Izzy problems, is when I say the word awkwardness. Sean is a very awkward striker. Off rhythm, takes away a little bit of your rhythm. And we talked about that in the fight. Like, don't get snake charmed by him because you're falling in love with the feints. I didn't think Dricus would do that either. Now, Sean and Dricus are not the same style of striker, but they're both very awkward, right? So stay unpredictable, and that's what I think Dricus did in that fight. He was unpredictable, and he was able to catch him, you know? I thought it was a real close fight. I thought it was maybe even, 2-2. 2-1. I thought Izzy looked good. And Izzy did so many things that I wish Sean had done more of in our fight.
Like
and
what?
Especially the teeps.
The
teeps. And then I liked what Izzy did with the body work. I really liked that too. So there were some things I took from that fight that Izzy presented that I was like, okay, these are some things that I can capitalize on for our next game plan.
What is it about DDP? Because every time people are saying, like, it doesn't look like he's going to win. He looks awkward. He looks unorthodox. It's heart.
I think it's heart. I think it's confidence. And I think he's like, it's hard to say. It's like, he's not worried about the person that he's fighting in front of him. He wasn't like enamored by fighting Israel, right? He wasn't like, oh, I'm fighting Israel and I'm going to fight this guy tight. And he's like, no, he's fighting me. He's got to worry about me. He has this confidence about him that I think that a lot of people don't have. And now he's continually winning. And what is that going to do to his confidence? Continue to build, right? So I think he's just a particular style, but hey, his cardio got tested versus Sean and he passed. He was in a little bit of adversity versus Izzy, and he passed that test as well. So I think the more and more he continues to win, his own skills are going to get better. But to me, it's his heart, and I think he's a smart fighter.
Sean's win over Paulo Costa, how would you assess his performance?
C+.
Really?
C+.
Why?
I felt like we could have done what we did in round 3, the whole fight.
Okay.
The whole fight. So I made a comment to Sean, I think maybe going into round 3, or when we did 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was around 3 or 4.
Okay.
And I said, Sean, you fought Izzy with nothing to lose. You fought Dricus not to lose. I need you to fight Paulo with nothing to lose, because we're going to try to outpoint this guy. And I was so nervous I saw the way the judging was going that entire night. I was so nervous. And when the judges read the card and it was split decision, Sean looked right over at me and I'm like, bro, I told you. You know what I mean? Like this is they're not looking at just your jab anymore, right? It might land 100 times in a round, but we need to present more scoring criteria for a judge to be able to go,
right.
Okay, there's the teep, there's kicks, there's this, right? So that was what I was worried about, and I think Sean could have done that more often. We probably could have put him away.
Wow, you think so?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Did he feel the same way?
He knew exactly what I was talking about.
Okay, so he won't take that personally.
If you came to the gym and watched Sean Strickland spar, you would watch this dude and go like, who stole your money?
Wow.
Like he's trying to kill in there, because you can't lose a sparring match, right? You just spar as hard. He spars super, super hard. Then in the fight, it's a little bit more tactical, and I understand that, and you're trying to win and everything else. But I think that's why our relationship is so good. That's what, he trusts me and our dynamic. Is I'll tell him, "Bro, quit being a little bitch. You got to go." So.
Speaking of the training room, I heard you recently speak a little bit about being in there with Khabib.
Oh yeah.
Could you tell the public who may have missed those comments what's that like?
Sure.
And surrounding which fight was that?
This was a while ago. This was Khabib was training, doing some stuff at the PI, and this is a funny story because I actually had Bilal Muhammad on the podcast.
Yes, the new podcast, Versus Us.
Yeah,
Versus Us podcast. You're doing a great job with that. I love the setup.
Thank
you
you
and Randall.
Yeah,
it's fun, right?
That's my guy. I love. Yeah, definitely. So. Khabib had been doing these practices at the UFC PI, and I had asked him if it was cool if I sat in and watched on the practices. He's like, yeah, come in. And I just wanted to kind of see the format and what he was doing, how he ran things. And it was very serious. And you understand why these guys are the combined record of 68-0 when you look at the 3 of them, right? The warm-up is calculated. Everything that they do, there's no music, there's no talking. If you're not invited, if you didn't get okayed by Khabib, you're fucking out.
Really?
And so Bilal brought. I can't throw Bilal under the bus, but Bilal had a friend, his wrestling coach had brought a friend that was going to go work out, and the friend kind of thought it was okay to maybe warm up on the mat while the guys were warming up, and Khabib was like, "Yo, who's this guy?" And this dude was huge. He's like 6'6", big bodybuilder looking dude, and Khabib just kind of like walks up to this dude and is looking up at him, but punking him. I've never seen a dude just melt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is he just trying to test him, or is he?
He was just like, who invited you to my practice?
Wow.
Who vetted you in? And then he's like, well, I'm with Bilal. And Bilal's like, you ain't with me, And then so then Khabib looks at me and he's like, Coach, you gonna let a guy in your practice room? You gonna let a guy on the mat that you don't know? And I'm like. I would. I'm like, no, never, man. Hell no. I'll never let that happen. Not in my gym, sort of thing. So, but it just, like watching that practice just makes you understand why he's building champions throughout, his crew.
Can I ask your opinion on Sean O'Malley Merab?
Ooh,
you have such a great mind. I really, every time I think about this fight, I get a headache. I just don't know how it's going to play out.
I don't think any one of us is going to be surprised, right? If you open the paper up on Sunday and you see Merab wins by decision, you're not going to be surprised.
Right.
I love Merab, and I consider him a friend, right? But if I'm looking at this from an analyst standpoint, I don't know how Merab's going to knock him out. I don't know how Merab's going to submit him. I think Merab's one main route to victory is by decision. But if you tell me 25 minutes, Sugar Sean O'Malley has 25 minutes to find your chin, I got to lean towards that. Now, here's what I see from when you break down Sean, is his slide steps, his shake steps. He'll be in an orthodox stance. He'll change and slide over into southpaw. So you think you're going to collect a single leg, but now he's in a complete opposite stance and he's sniping you with a left cross.
Wow.
Or he's flicking a teep up the middle. So we call it pressure release. You pressure this guy, and what happens when you pressure wrestlers? They shoot. So you panic wrestle the guy, you press him. Now you know the shot comes. You compensate for the space of the shot. You allow him to play. You play a little bit of matador.
Yeah.
But when you're good out of both stances, you have that luxury. So you walk him into your offense. The big key for me with Sean is not to put his back up against the cage. You got to understand and know your geography. You can't put your back to the cage. If he owns center octagon and is able to understand his exits, then I think Sean will find him.
Wow. You see, I can listen to this guy talk about MMA all day long. I love that stuff. That stuff is incredible. Let me ask you very, very quickly before I let you go. Valentina Shevchenko, Alexa Grasso, another one that I have a hard time kind of breaking down or at least envisioning, because I thought Valentina won the second fight.
Yeah, me too.
I think most people think.
Yep, me too.
Didn't see the submission coming in the first fight.
Right.
Out of nowhere.
Right.
Against Valentina.
And losing. Alexa was losing that fight. Yeah, 100%.
So what about now? I'm worried about the layoff for Valentina.
Sure.
1 year.
How is she evolving?
Yeah.
Right? What has she done in the meantime to evolve her game? If she leans heavy on, I'm just going to out-wrestle this girl, I have to believe that Alexa Grasso has been working on those things and shoring up her game off of her back. You know, she has great coaches, Diego Lopez being one of them.
Right.
So, again, another coin flip sort of fight. I lean towards Valentina just because of the offensive wrestling that she does possess. But I also think it's like, you know, her ego gets in her way sometimes. I feel like she wants to outstrike this girl because that's what she's always been known for, is her striking, how good she is on the feet. So another coin flip fight. I lean towards Valentina in this fight because of the wrestling.
You were in obviously Dan's corner when he fought Diego Lopez on 2 hours' notice.
Yeah.
By the way, Dan bummed he's not fighting tomorrow. That was kind of the thing, right?
I wrote Ige on when I write him. I wrote him on Tuesday. I go, yo, what's your weight? And he's like 168. I was like, make sure that shit's 164 by Friday, but you never know. You never know. So yeah. So he's good. He's getting ready for Laurent Murphy.
Right.
For, Abu Dhabi.
Coming up end of October.
Yep.
How do you think Ortega can do this, or do you think that Lopez is on this trajectory where it's his time now? Obviously, Ortega fighting at 145, not 55, which is what he was planning on doing.
I mean, to me, I lean towards Ortega.
Really?
I do. I give Ortega the edge in the boxing. I think the jiu-jitsu cancels each other out. Maybe even give a little of edge to Ortega in the jiu-jitsu because of the transitional submission game. But Diego also possesses such a great transitional submission game. We've seen him jump on that armbar versus Gavin Tucker,
right.
Switch over to triangle, finish the fight. You know, he jumped a guillotine on Ige, threw him in a darce. So that transitional submission game is very, very good out of both. So for some reason why I feel that's going to cancel each other out. But when you look at the style of boxing that Diego possesses, he likes to be inside the pocket. A lot of uppercuts, a lot of hooks, backside knees, things like that. I think Ortega uses his length, stays long, straight linear punches. He can pick them up apart from the outside. I lean towards Ortega in that fight. Kind of rooting for Diego, though.
Yes. Wow. What a mind. What a guy. The great Eric Nicksick, everyone. Show some love to one of the best minds. And like I said at the top, one of the best people in MMA. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
You're always there when we need you. Really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
Everyone, Eric Nicksick, the man at Extreme Couture. Thank you so much to him. And incredible hair as well. Unbelievable.